Welcome to an introduction to educational research. Today's video addresses the action research model. The goal of this video is not to explain the action research model. You've already read about it in your textbook. The goal is to try and help you conceptualize how the model may be useful in your development of your master's thesis or field project. As an aside, there's a very interesting graphic on your screen done by Sonia Terberg, and see the information below at the bottom of the screen for the website. It very cleverly outlines the major points about the action research model. If you're interested in examining it, why not put the video on pause for a moment and look it over? It's an excellent review of the model. And then when you're done, you can turn the video back on and we'll continue. The graphic on your screen points out some distinctions between how researchers and activists approach the world. It's suggesting that researchers tend to look to find connections between events and outcomes. What is it that caused that effect? What's the relationship between smoking, let's say, and lung cancer, or the relationship between regular exercise and good health? These are things that researchers are interested in. They're looking in cause and effect relationships. And also researchers are motivated to generate, to generate new ideas and theories about what will help us better predict and change our world. On the other hand, activists see or identify local problems that need solutions in the here and now, and then they go about taking action to solve them. They are also motivated to improve situations or problems, but they're less interested in generating new knowledge or theories. However, both the goals of researchers and the goals of activists are important, and they're very necessary, and they're not really mutually exclusive. They can coexist. One major criticism of the teaching profession is the fact that it's not considered a profession at all. Teachers generally are seen as passing on information that has been handed down to them by others who generate the theories or create the curriculum. Although this is a rather harsh criticism of the profession, I think there is a kernel of truth in this. Educational theorists, researchers in institutions of higher education, and high-power publishing houses appear to be the major sources of our educational curricula. This is a top-down approach where educational theories and practices are filtered down to school districts and to teachers who are then charged with transmitting this information to their students. So we have Mrs. Bornas, who is a 4th grade ESL teacher, language arts, and she's told by her district, who was told by the publishing house that sold the district their program, that all the latest research indicates that the best way for her to improve her ESL students' English proficiency is by using prepackaged curriculum X, let's say. And again, this is a top-down approach. This is coming from the top down. The problem is that the prepackaged curriculum X does not know the specific learning needs of Mrs. Bornas' students. Mrs. Bornas does. What would it look like if there were a canon of educational research that came from the bottom up, from interventions done in individual classrooms by individual teachers who are skilled in carrying out systematic scientific inquiries into situations and problems that arise in their own classrooms, school districts, or schools? This is the focus of the action research and Teachers as Researchers movement. This video will briefly attempt to explore this theme. The graphic on your screen, which you have seen before, outlines the various types of educational research designs and methodologies. You can see the two major research methodologies. In the red, the quantitative research methodologies, and in the green, the qualitative research methodologies. And under the quantitative research methodologies, you have the experimental methodologies and the non-experimental methodologies. And under the qualitative, you have the interactive methodologies and the non-interactive methodologies. In assignment 4, you were introduced to the quantitative and qualitative research methodologies. And so you looked at true experimental designs, quasi-experimental designs, pre-experimental designs. We briefly discussed descriptive research, correlational research, causal comparative research, and survey research. Also, in assignments 5 through 8, you viewed videos that dealt with the single case research designs, the ABA design, the multiple baseline, the multiple probe, the changing criterion, and the multi-element designs. While completing your master's thesis or master's field project, you will, within the context of the action research model, incorporate some elements from one or more of these research designs. It will be to your advantage to be familiar with the function and format of the design or designs that pertain to your particular area of inquiry, and whether you're doing an actual thesis, a study, or if you're doing a field project. And if you need a review, I would suggest that you see the appropriate videos in assignments 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Here is one example of an action research process and how it might relate to a master's thesis. And notice the yellow box right in the middle, top middle of the graphic. You can see the action research process master's thesis. Now, you already have read chapters 1 and 2 at least in your textbook and should be familiar with what the cyclical action research model is and the process for conducting an action research project. To review, the process includes identifying a problem, and you can see the subheadings here. We have identify an area of inquiry and limiting that area of inquiry so that it is researchable and manageable, and then gathering the related research literature and reviewing that research literature. Next, you develop a research plan. Who and what will you study? Why will you study whatever it is you're studying? How will you study? What will your methodology be? Will you be using a quantitative research methodology or a qualitative research methodology or a mixed research methodology? Next, then you have your data collection. And of course, the quantitative data, either surveys and questionnaires, checklists, tests, informal instruments, or some other forms of data that you might, of quantitative data that you might be collecting. And then you have your qualitative data, which would consist of observations or interviews or journals or existing documents, school records, or any other types of qualitative data that you come up with. Next, you would go to your data analysis. And once you've analyzed your data, if your plan was successful, you might want to share your results and identify a new area to examine. And that is the cycle. That is the action research cycle. And if the results that you get were less than you expected, you might want to revise or tweak your plan and then go back and try again. Now, there are many models representing the stages of conducting an action research project, and although they may differ slightly, they basically are very similar in nature, in that they identify an area of inquiry. They develop a plan to act, to examine the area. You put the plan into action, you act, you gather data on how the plan is working, and you analyze the data and reflect on the results. The process is circular in nature and is intended to address specific local issues that, like in classrooms or schools or your district, where the goal is to improve one's practice or expertise as opposed to generating any new knowledge or theories. Now, this again is an example of the action research model as it might apply to a thesis or scientific study that was carried out in a classroom, a school, or a district, etc. Now, let's take a look at this exact same model, but let's take a look what it might look like if it was applied to doing a master's field project. Well, here is the exact same action research cyclical model we just looked at. However, on the previous screen, we looked at how the model might apply to a master's thesis or scientific study. And this time, we'll try and give an example of how it might apply to a master's field project. The steps in the model are exactly the same. You identify a problem, you develop a plan of action, you collect your data, you analyze your data, and you draw your conclusions and report your results, or you adjust the plan and try again. Now, although the major steps of the model are exactly the same, the subcategories of each step in some cases may be exactly the same, but in other cases they may differ. So we'll go through this together. For step one, the three major steps in the three major categories in the steps of step number one are exactly the same. You identify an area of inquiry, you limit the area of inquiry, and then you gather the related literature and you read the related literature. However, if you'll notice step two, develop a plan of action. Here, the sub-steps are different. They include describing what the project is being planned and what form the project will be in. So what is the project that you're doing and what is the form? As an example, is it an in-service training module? Is it a website? Is it a parent training? Is it some kind of educational brochure or whatever? So what is it? What format does it take? And what is it that you want to do? The second step is the purpose of the project, the why. Why are you doing this project? Who is it for? What is it supposed to do? The next step is the specific project objectives. What are your objectives? What do you want to accomplish in this project? And how will you evaluate each of these objectives? Specifically, how will you evaluate the objectives? Now, basically, the data collection subcategories are the same as for the data collection subcategories for the master's thesis. And after that, then comes your data analysis. Your data analysis. And then again, if your plan was successful or if your project was successful, you may want to share your results and identify new areas to examine. And if it was not what you expected, then you may want to go back with the feedback that you have gotten about your field project, and you may want to tweak it a little bit and adjust it. Now, as stated on the previous screen, there are, again, many models representing stages of conducting the action research. And again, they are very, very similar. They all have the basic cyclical idea of identifying a problem, developing an action plan, collecting your data, analyzing your data, reporting your results, or adjusting. So again, in summary, this particular screen This example examines the action research model as it might apply to a master's field project. Pardon me. Well, here is your assignment. On your screen are the two outlines of the action research model we just went over. On the left side of the screen is the outline for the thesis. If you were doing a thesis, that's the outline. On the right side of the screen is the outline for if you were doing a field project. Your assignment for this video is to complete in detail the appropriate outline. So if you're doing a thesis, you complete the outline that is on the left of your screen, and if you're doing a field project, you complete the outline on the right side of your screen. Now, I have emailed you a Word document with both outlines, so you don't have to copy them here. You can just go to the Word document and you can just insert your responses in the Word document. Now, this is a large assignment, and don't rush through it. It's sort of difficult, but if you successfully complete this assignment, you should have no trouble completing your Chapter 1 proposal. When you have completed the assignment, please email it to me. And thank you very much for your time and consideration, and we'll see you in the next video.